Ladies and gentlemen, once again, a very warm welcome and welcome back to all our repeating participants. It's a great pleasure to have you all here with us on our sixth Arton Capital webinar series. It gives me also great pleasure to introduce you to today's speakers and guests who are participating in this webinar. Would like to start with our special guest, Mr. Haris Georgiades, the former Minister of Finance of Cyprus. We have also Mr. Armand Arton, the founder and president of Arton Capital with us, and Ms. Niki Ioannou, the Managing Director of Arton Capital Cyprus. Before we'll be handing over to Armand, I would like to ask you if you have during the entire webinar any questions. You will see at the bottom of your screen a Q&A section. You can send us anytime the questions and we will be getting back to you throughout the webinar series and at the end of our Q&A session. I would not take any longer your time. I would like to hand over to you, Armand. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Carl. And just to introduce Akis Georgiades, who is also part of our team in Cyprus. And this is actually what makes our offer in this country more special. It's the local touch we have and the great expertise of Niki and Akis, who have experience over 20 years in the real estate. And over the last 7 years with Arton Capital have built a great relationship with the government and of course helped many clients find a new home in this beautiful country. Welcome as well to the former Minister Georgiades, which is a great honor and pleasure to have you with us. You've been instrumental in the setup of this program. As well, we have exchanged over the years many times in the best practices of this industry, and I think Cyprus have become really one of the best programs since the start in 2013. Without further delay, I would like to start with the brief introductions for those who don't know about us, about Arton Capital and myself. We are a Canadian firm based out of Montreal, started in 2006 with expertise which now range in more than 12 countries. We help not only governments to realize their full benefits of the foreign investment, but as well measure and grow the social impact of these investments on each jurisdictions. Starting in Canada with our first contract, as I mentioned, we have now 12 jurisdictions from the Caribbean, St. Kitts, Antigua, Anguilla, St. Lucia, Grenada, Dominica. We were one of the first to set up actually in Bulgaria in 2008, 2009, the legislation, helping the local government on becoming one of the first countries, which as well was followed by Hungary, Cyprus, and Montenegro. And we're expanding our reach to the Solomon Islands, which is soon to announce their own program of citizenship by investment. So again, the world is our oyster and citizenship by investment is our expertise. We believe that we have helped more than nearly 4,000 individuals and families to really expand their personal reach of becoming global citizens. And we are successful at doing this only through our partners network, which exceeds 500 licensed stakeholders in different jurisdictions, family offices, lawyers, immigration experts that work with us on promoting our services and promoting the countries and their programs. Again, for us, and for me personally, being a global citizen is really a core mission of our company. And every time when we speak with a client or when we speak with a government, we speak from first-hand experience of seeing how countries like Canada have built their entire economies on immigration. They have attracted and they have refined their migration policy over the last 25 years. And my family is one of these examples. Over 30 years ago, immigrated to Canada and provided the opportunities that I have realized. And that's why I'm a proud ambassador of this country and of this industry, because I believe it not only helps the needs of these high net worth families around the world, who nobody really asked them where they wanted to be born. Nobody really asked them which passport they wanted to have at birth. And yet, that defines their mobility, defines where they can go, defines very often the quality of life, of access to medical, healthcare, to education, And the same as my parents, over 25,000 families every year choose to become residents or citizens of another country by investing in that countries, by helping the local economies turn around completely from financial distress, like in Cyprus, in Greece, in Portugal. Many countries have looked into this industry like Canada did 30 years ago and realized the power it has to help, the same way as the IMF, the same way as the Troika and international financial institutions who are there to support small islands or developing nations in need. Next slide, please. So we're very known as well as a company for creating the first interactive and really leading global mobility platform called the Passport Index. If I have to update really every day the slide, it's now 57 million of users that are using this technology, even in times as now where people cannot travel. It's curious to see how many people are planning their travel once border opens. And again, knowing where you need a visa and when you don't, and each country have increased or reduced their visa-free agreements with countries, have become really the core piece of the Passport Index, with so many users and governments reaching out to us to update daily the agreements. And the good news is, which you will be reading in the press soon, is that with the Passport Index, we measure something called the world openness, and it's been increasing over the last 5 years. And even though today you might think that all the passports are equal and you cannot travel anywhere, no countries have really canceled any visa-free agreements. We haven't seen any change of policies on a formal diplomatic ways. Yes, there is medical restriction, there's emergency restrictions, but nobody have canceled visa-free agreements. And we believe that in 2021, we'll see a drastic return to freedom and mobility of individuals. And we hope by then the Passport Index application, which will launch in January and have over 25,000 downloads, to become one of the key tools in your pocket when you decide to know where you want to go, which passport you have, because many of you have more than one, by birth or by immigration or by investment, to realize what is the best instrument to travel. As well, we believe that with the medical records that will be part of who you are and where you can board the plane or not, will become an integral part of your digital passport. And Passport Index will be one of the tools that will allow you to reflect your medical record prior boarding, the same way as having e-visas. Next slide, please. For, of course, those that miss the good times of the Global Citizen Forum and the gatherings that this event has made over the last 7 years, we hope by 2021 to return en grand, as we say in French, with a bigger and better forum than ever. In the meantime, we organize and you use technology like this webinar and many other initiatives to reach out to our fellow global citizens around the world and discuss what is at heart for them, what it means to be a global citizen, how we can help each other in times of crisis, and what it means personal mobility in the 2.1 version of the post-pandemic world. So again, we please ask you always to follow us on the Global Citizen social media channels. These webinars, which, as I said, is our 6th since the beginning of the pandemic, are here to enlighten a lot of you as citizens, future citizens, stakeholders, governments, on what each program is doing in these times of crisis, how they are seeing the economic impact of the crisis to their countries, as well as purely from procedural concept, what the applications and the flow of residency or citizenship process will be affected. And of course, the magazine, Global Citizen Magazine, is distributed over the world in a digital and free way right now. So again, you can find a lot of the articles relevant to what we're talking in our Global Citizen Magazine feature, which is now at 11 years of existence. And without further delay, I would like to invite Mr. Georgiades and, sorry, a couple of slides that I forgot, which are important. As I mentioned, nobody really chooses where we're born, but we can choose where to define our future. And what we're seeing in the pyramid of wealth, it's something interesting that from the first 3 months of existence, if we can have the next slide, please, you will see that the total net worth of people that have 1 million and more was targeted to be around 18 million people, information from Wealthex. Now, 2.2 million of these 18 million millionaires around the world had what we would simplify to say a bad passport, a passport that did not allow them to travel to more than 66 countries visa-free. And this was our potential market. This is really the families and the high net worth individuals in countries anywhere from Southeast Asia, China, Middle East, and Africa, as well as Russia and CIS, that would have the income, would have the reasons and the push factors to become global citizens. Now, what we think post-COVID will happen is that a lot of the simply wealthy between 1 and 3 million will be affected in a way that financially, you'll see with the next slide, the red, will definitely reduce their financial capacity to invest. However, those who are what we call ultra high net worthy, and in the case of Cyprus, in average, we believe that our clients have between 15 and 20 million in order to invest about 2 million in the program. Those people, we have seen an increased demand from them, especially from Asia, about investing abroad, about diversifying their assets, and as well as expanding their reach. So even though what I would say, the simply high net worthy from 1 to 3 million will be financially impacted, we believe that ultra high net worthy will not be so much financially distressed in a post-COVID economies. And even though they will be actually the first segment of the market that will increase demand, and that's what we're seeing in the last 1 to 2 months. Now, the reasons why would somebody apply for a passport or for residency by investment are also changing. What it used to be only access and mobility, with of course the security, the health, the access to education, the quality of life, and very small percentage were really concerned about taxation. What we see in a post-COVID world, completely different factors in terms of priority and percentages. So the next slide will show you that suddenly the access and mobility is a little bit of less important, and then the security and the plan B in terms of mobility and political instability, like in Hong Kong, becomes a major factor. The health and the education, which translate in the quality of life, a lot of clients are looking into how those countries that they have the choice to invest have answers and have assessed the crisis of the pandemic. And you know, many of them are not looking at the US the same way as they used to look at it as an American dream 5 years ago, just from the political perspective and from the way how they have handled pandemic. And again, looking at countries like Cyprus, Montenegro, and Europe, we definitely see some countries that outstand in their response, in their health system. And interestingly enough, a lot of people start asking questions about taxation. Now, not necessarily from perspective that they're worried about their own taxation, but they're worried that this $1 trillion in euros spent across the world from governments eventually will have to be collected in a form of taxation. So the question is very often, do you believe that those governments that we're investing in now, like Cyprus, will have a stable fiscal policy ahead? Would they change their taxation on a global level, or like the US is doing on a worldwide income, regardless where you're resident or not? And this is some of the questions I will have for Mr. Georgiades in terms of how Cyprus plans in terms of fiscal policy and taxations have defined Cyprus as a success until now, and what are his projections in the future. So again, if you allow me directly to jump into some questions in a conversation with the former Minister of Finance, as I mentioned, who was pivotal and instrumental in the setup of this program in one of the most difficult times in the recent financial history of Cyprus. Mr. Georgiades, please tell us a little bit about when you started at your post and what was your initial knowledge about this industry, and how over the first 3-4 years of your position as a minister, you have seen the Citizenship by Investment program in Cyprus supporting the overall negotiations that you had to do with the Troika, with the IMF, with all the changes that you had to implement in order to have such a successful turnaround for the Cypriot economy.
So Armand, thank you for inviting me to participate in this webinar. Niki, Agis, I'm delighted to be with you in this session. Yeah, I mean we need to put the program in a context, a policy context, or even more broadly, a context which basically defines Cyprus. I mean, there are 2 or 3 notable features about Cyprus. I mean, firstly, it's very pro-business. It has always been pro-business. There has been a cross-party over the years direction that we should remain competitive, that we should strive to identify and promote incentives for business, for investment, for entrepreneurship. A second feature for Cyprus, it's very open and very welcoming to foreign business. So it's not only pro-business for local enterprise, it's very, it has always been very keen to attract foreign business, foreign investment, foreign high net worth individuals. So within this context, defining a citizenship program and adding it to the toolbox, basically, of incentives was almost a natural thing to do, especially back in 2013, when we were regrettably in financial difficulty as a country. We got it wrong during the previous years when it came to banking sustainability and fiscal sustainability. So we were even more keen back then to see the economy rebound quickly. So the citizenship program was yet another addition to the toolbox and yet another feature to what makes Cyprus as a very pro-business, open and welcoming jurisdiction. You asked me whether and to what extent it has helped make Cyprus one of the fastest growing economies of the European Union over the last 5 years, because indeed for the previous 5 years we had an annual growth rate which was on average at 4.4% of the GDP. That's way above the Eurozone average. According to an economic impact assessment that we conducted, the citizenship program amounted for 0.3% of the growth on an annual basis. So that's not immense. I mean, obviously, we are not reliant on this program, but it's a good top-up to an already solid growth record, almost, let's say, just short of 10% of growth, maybe 7% of growth annually relates to this program. And that's exactly why we, long after we were past the difficulties of the period of 2012, 2013, this program has been maintained. It has been enhanced. It's now much more credible, rigorous program, but still one which is attractive enough, especially if it's seen in conjunction with the tax regime, the business-friendly environment, the safety and stability which Cyprus has to offer. So this is a high-level overview.
Thank you very much. If I might ask, how, from your perspective, even though on the sidelines currently, not as a minister, how have you seen and what are your projections of the impact of this pandemic crisis on the economy of Cyprus and the tourism, and as well as if you can tell us how diversified you think will be the growth, which sector will contribute? I know Cyprus have not only been active in the banking, but a lot in the software, gaming industry. All this industry to there have a elasticity compared to others in this crisis. So what are your projections for the next 1 to 2 years? And is tourism also would be affected? And what percentage of tourism has on the growth that you have just mentioned?
So this year, 2020, will be a difficult year. I mean, it will be difficult everywhere across the globe, across the EU. So we know very well, and we expect that this will not be an easy year. Probably we shall register the worst downturn on an annual basis over the last few decades. But at the same time, we are very confident that this will be a short-term crisis, not one which will run into a medium-term horizon. So, I mean, if you ask me about the next year or the year after, the next couple of years, I would be. Well, I would, in fact, maybe I will sound overconfident, but I would be willing to make an assessment that Cyprus will probably once again demonstrate that it's one of the economies which will show the fastest rebound. It will be a difficult year, but I expect already as of 2021 our economy to rebound strongly, and for Cyprus to achieve one of the fastest recoveries in the Eurozone. And I believe there are good reasons for that. I mean, firstly, as I was just mentioning, the coronavirus crisis hit Cyprus at the very when Cyprus was at a very strong position in its economic cycle. I mean, with a fiscal surplus. Not only a balanced budget, but a fiscal surplus which is almost 3 times larger than the second country, which is Luxembourg. So on the back of a very solid growth rate, which lasted for a full 5-year period. Our fiscal position has been very strong, and this has enabled the government to respond quickly and to respond strongly enough with a fiscal boost to economic activity, which is by comparison to the size of our GDP, one of the largest in the Eurozone. So disposable income has been preserved. Key sectors of the economy are already getting back to normal business as we speak. It's worth noting that on the health front, Cyprus, together with Malta and Slovakia, I think also Latvia, has been one of the top performers in the EU, one of the fewest death rates. Our emergency facilities are basically vacant as we speak. I mean, I think maybe one or two people still in hospitalized. So huge ER capacity, very high testing and tracking, which means that the health crisis is basically under control, and business sectors are back in operation, which means that already economic activity is catching up. So without this saying that 2020 will not be a difficult year, primarily because of the tourist season being crippled, we expect that come autumn, tourism will also run with full steam, and especially next year will be a year of strong recovery.
Thank you very much for the positive outlook, and I share it as well in terms of rebounds. And I believe Europe is well positioned to benefit from it, not only probably from first internal tourism, but as well being more open to international travel. And I think Cyprus will definitely benefit from it as one of the first countries. Now, a last question is, what sector, as you know, since the program started, it has changed over the period in order to evolve and to assess different economic needs for the countries, from deposits, which were very much needed, in 2013, 14, 15, into government bonds and then real estate. And I think this is what a good government does. They look at the program, they look at the needs, and then they make changes in order to really utilize to the maximum the benefit of these FDIs. Now, which sector you believe might need in the future support, financial support from the programs? And would you see any changes, knowing that you're not in a position of government, but would you see any changes to the program that could help Cyprus in these forthcoming difficult years and the years ahead?
I do not foresee major changes, and I can speak with a certain degree of confidence. I'm not a member of the government. I do not participate at the cabinet, but I am the deputy leader of the governing party. So I can tell you that the investment program will basically be maintained more or less along the current lines, which are quite flexible. We do not single out any particular sector. It is true that real estate has been the most popular investment under the program during the last few years, but that's not a government policy. That was an investment decision. So all sectors of the economy are eligible. We do not single out a sector or over another. That said, it is probably not a surprise to to tell you that tourism and real estate are probably the two most well-developed sectors of the Cyprus economy. So all other sectors, including, for instance, higher education, technology, IT, would be very welcomed under the program also. But my view has been over the years, and the government policy continues to be, that it's not really the job of the government to decide and to decide which sectors are in need of investment, or rather in which sectors good business investment opportunities can be identified. We'd rather see these decisions made by the investors themselves, and we believe that the role of the government should be to keep the ship steady, to maintain a favorable, safe economic environment, to maintain tax certainty. Since since you did mention taxes, Armand, let me also refer to taxation, because I mean you raised a very interesting question, whether the fiscal whether the expansionary fiscal policies will lead to increased taxation over the next few years. So, I mean, I can tell you what my policy was when I had to close a significant fiscal deficit, and what continues to be the policy of the government. If we need to raise money, we do not raise taxes. If anything, we lower taxes. We provide tax incentives. And we have demonstrated, we know from firsthand, that when you opt for this way, maybe providing certainty and stability, and if anything, throw in a couple of tax incentives, tax revenues go up, and they go up through a sustainable way on the back of solid economic performance. So that's what we are aiming. No chance for Cyprus to raise its corporate tax rate, or its personal income tax rate, or its VAT rate. If anything, we shall be looking for additional tax incentives, without these significantly altering the balance of our tax system, which we consider to be a quite successful one. So this should be the policy, keeping a stable economic environment, and allowing private initiative to do its job.
Thank you very much. And I know you have to let us go in the next 4 minutes. We have a few questions from clients, of course, and stakeholders. You have answered a lot of them actually in the former conversation which we just did. One is regarding as a last question, the European Commission, as you know, has always been active in monitoring countries in Europe, and you have answered them in the past in terms of changes that I think were recommended, and some of them were implemented in Cyprus. What is your opinion in terms of jurisdictions and in terms of answers of Cyprus? Recently, we're reading that the quota of 700 per applications per year, if there is 1,000, Cyprus will not say no and will still take the investments in the clients because they need them. How are you juggling being part of the European Union and following some of this European Commission interventions in jurisdictions which are really not under their responsibility?
I'm not sure if I understood your point about the threshold. So the 700 threshold. If I believe that's a real threshold, and so I do not think we should be.
So the question was, if you have 1,000 applications, would you refuse 300?
Yes. So it's not so much an issue of refusing; it's an issue of examining them the next year. That's how I would view it, because we do need to keep the program under a framework. We should it's a good number for by terms of the size of the economy, and we should maintain this framework. So the EU. So let us always remember the European Union is not represented by. It's not one thing. It's not represented by a single institution. Even a single institution is not one thing. I mean, even the Commission is more than one entity. So I can tell you. I mean, I was participating in the Eurogroup, in the ECOFIN, for almost 7 years. This issue was never ever raised. There has been some interest and some correspondence with Commission services, and I choose my words. It's Commission services. It wasn't really Commission level. I do not think the issue was ever elevated to the Congress of Commissioners. It was Commission services. We're very open to any discussion. We do not react negatively to questions or even considerations or even criticism about the program. We are very engaging whenever anything is raised, because we feel that we have the answers, and we feel that we have a credible framework, and we are always ready to make further improvements if this is necessary, and if we identify a shortcoming in the program. But on the other hand, let's not lose sense of the facts and figures. So all Cyprus citizenships over a year amount to less than 0.5% of EU citizenships granted over the year. Of these 0.5%, less than a third relate to investors, and the rest are marriage and staying in Cyprus for many years, and athletes applying for the Cypriot passport and so on. So it's a very it's not an unregulated program. On the contrary, it's a very regulated program, and that's how it should be. And we are absolutely ready to provide answers and information and clarification to our EU partners. This is what we have been doing over the years, and if any issue is raised at any stage, this is what we shall do once again. Again, with a clear view that this is yet another incentive, an expression of appreciation to foreign investors who identify business and investment opportunities in Cyprus as a tangible gesture of how welcomed and how safe they should feel in Cyprus. So for us, it's part of what we are, that we are a very welcoming place, that families living in Cyprus can send their children to school, and business people to set up shop in Cyprus and to conduct business, to use Cyprus as a base, to enjoy the sunshine even, and basically to be part of the Cyprus experience.
Thank you very much, Mr. Georgiades. I want to personally thank you for the time that you allocated us and for your insight, input, and vision, which I, as I said, share for not as gloomy as a lot of media loves to paint those days, but as a very much more positive outlook in the next mid to long term for Cyprus. So again, I wish you a very great day and stay safe, and we look forward to keep you in the family of global citizens and experts that we have.
Thank you very much. It was my pleasure.
Thank you. And without further delay, I would like to pass the word to Niki and Akis to tell you more in details about some of the specifics of this program, which allows high net worth and ultra high net worth people around the world to become citizens of Cyprus, of member of European Union country, with all the benefits that comes with. So without further delay, Niki.
Yes, Armand, thank you. On my turn, I would like to welcome you all, to thank you for your interest in Cyprus and the Cyprus program. First of all, I would like to look at the advantages of Cyprus and why Cyprus. Cyprus is an important hub in the heart of the Mediterranean at the crossroads of Europe, Africa, and Asia. Cyprus boasts a rich and diverse culture, a mild Mediterranean climate, a safe and stable setting ideal for raising families, for business, and for traveling within and beyond the European Union. Main economic sectors are shipping, tourism, legal and financial services. Cyprus has seen a surge in foreign investments and development. It has high quality of tourist and leisure facilities open all year round. It is known for its hospitality and cuisine. It is the safest country in the world with a population under 5 million. It's one of the best retirement destinations, and according to the FDI magazine, it was the best island economy for the period 2017-2018. It is a member of the European Union and is part of the Eurozone. Now, we are moving now to COVID-19 and the response of the government to this crisis. Nowadays, I think that the most important advantage of Cyprus is that it has always taken care of its nationals. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs and its diplomatic missions work always together in a crisis to either repatriate Cypriots abroad or assist those who choose to stay abroad. For example, there has been an immediate and effective action for the COVID-19 pandemic. Strict measures were taken from the beginning. The government managed to contain the spread of the disease rapidly. This challenging period of COVID-19 has proved the highly standard of Cyprus healthcare. Therefore, we have one of the lowest death rates of 0.019 per thousand. The lockdown has now ended, and the government has announced the reopening of hotels and the airports, enabling the economy to restart. Now, as previously mentioned, Cyprus is business friendly. It has a lot of advantages and business initiatives are welcome, and there are a lot of new incentives for business ventures. Our legal system is based on English law. We have a low corporate tax, as the minister said, at 12.5%, and a zero tax rate for dividends of non-domicile tax residents. There are over 60 double taxation treaties with countries. Inheritance tax is zero. The tax exceptions apply for both non-tax residents and non-domicile tax residents. One important factor is the opportunity available to all to set up Cyprus International Trust, allowing full foreign ownership, asset protection, estate planning, and there is a significant control for the settlor. Our team of professional associates can explore individual needs and accommodate individual wishes. Now, let's look at the benefits of the Cyprus investment program. Approval is granted within approximately 6 months after submission. Residency and citizenship applications are submitted together. A residency permit is given in 5 working days after submission. There is no language requirements. Parents can be included, and children up to the age of 28 can be included in the program as well. Civil unions qualify for submission, and there is no obligation to relinquish current nationality. If we look at the passport index, we can see that Cyprus mobility score is 165. So we can see that you can have access to Europe and beyond Europe. It ranks 7th on the global rank. And some of the qualifications that the applicants must have in order to apply are possess a valid passport, have a clean criminal record, hold a valid Schengen visa, not to have been rejected under a similar program of any other member state of the European Union, not be included in the list of persons whose property is ordered to be frozen within the European boundaries, possess a residency permit for a period of 6 months prior to the issuance of the passport, and of course undergo a rigorous due diligence and AML process. Now, due to the ban of traveling around the world, the government has taken the following measures in order to facilitate the investors. For example, Schengen visa will be required at the time of approval, not at the time of submission of the citizenship application. All official documents, citizenship application, affidavit declarations will need only the signature of the applicants. Certification of these documents will be done at a later stage. Investors can choose the investment from abroad remotely when the borders will open, and they can visit Cyprus. They can change the investment if they so wish. Investors can proceed with their applications and give their biometric data at a later stage. So this was the benefits and the advantages of Cyprus. Before going to the investment requirements, which will be presented by Mr. Georgiades, who is our property investment specialist and the Vice President of Arton Capital Cyprus, allow me to tell potential applicants who are here with us today. We know your concerns, and we understand what drives you to be here today with us. Either you want to have a plan B, or you want your family to belong to a bigger community, such as European Union, or you want to change the generations to come, the future of the generations to come. And as Armand said before, we cannot choose the country we were born, but we can choose the country we live, want to do business, and be part of it. Of course, we all love our country of origin, and this does not change no matter what. However, in times that we are living, we need to feel safe. We need to live in a better environment, protect our children, and be able to feel, to travel freely. We all need to belong to a country which really stands next to us and can provide security in times of political upheaval or indeed in a pandemic. I want to reassure you that Arton provides a very personal service and can help you to take this very important step for you. We are here to hold your hand, although it's not advisable at these times, and guide you through the whole process. We will ensure that the process will be stress-free, seamless. Now, let's go to Akis, who will tell us more on investment requirements and investment options. Thank you.
I would like to welcome you to this webinar as well. I would like to make a minor correction in what Armand said. Armand said that the collective property-related experience of the group in Cyprus is 20 years. It is, in reality, is more than 50 years, and unfortunately, most of it is mine. So with that in mind, let's see what the investment requirements are. Essentially, what the program provides is that somebody has to invest 2 million and 2 million in any kind of investment, and there are a lot of classes of investment one can look at: participation in companies, tourism sector, medical sector. There are a lot of, theoretically, there are a lot of options. Of course, when somebody starts assessing the various types of investment which he could find, then and apply the criteria, then those opportunities or those types of investment become much fewer in being attractive, I mean. But essentially, the program provides for 2 million investment plus 500,000 house, plus a donation of 150,000, of which 75,000 goes to for housing poor families, and 75,000 goes towards research and development. If somebody invests in residential property only, then the total amount is reduced by 500,000. So the minimum investment is 2 million plus the donation. And this is so since there will be, when somebody's investing in property, he will need to pay VAT, which stands at 19%. So this accounts for the difference why between investing, let's say, in a company and investing in property. The reason is the difference which comes from the VAT. As the minister said, most of the applicants opt for property investments, and in our experience, this is so because property offers a clear exit strategy. It offers complete control of the investment from the investor. Property values have been shown that they can go down in times of crisis, but they rebound and they can never become zero. And of course, property can be used to yield income. So overall, investors find that investing in property is the best option. And this is, we will come back to this. Although some people think that investing in property is also very simple, in reality, it is not that simple, and one needs to bring that under scrutiny. But we will explain. I will explain what we mean. Now, the timeline and the steps to be taken when applying essentially starts with the due diligence and anti-money laundering checks we carry out for compliance. And then the client will have to spend some time with us to identify, so that we can identify his investment profile and suggest different kinds of investments to fit that profile. We must say here that we are entirely independent. We do not participate in any type of investment. We are not developers. We do not participate in development projects. our service is entirely professional and entirely independent. Following the selection of the investments, sales contracts will need to be drafted, the file compiled, and the application submitted. Once the application is submitted, the client will receive a residency card within 5 days, and then we'll start the procedure, which lasts about 6 months until the approval of the application. The fees applicable here are 7,000 for adults and a minor amount of 80 euros for each minor. If we can go to the next slide, please. Now, as I said, selecting property and in general any investment requires a breadth of expertise, which we cover ourselves, but we also use our legal and tax and investment consultants depending on the type of investment selected. So our service is an A to Z service. It includes everything relating to the citizenship application and everything relating to investments, legal matters, tax matters, and all issues in between. So it's an A to Z service. When it comes to property especially, we feel that we can add value in the sense that the experience available at the Arton offices here is based on many years, decades actually, of doing consulting work and valuation work for banks and advice given for property development projects of many sizes. Therefore, this past experience is available to our clients, and from what we know, this is a competitive advantage that only Arton has at this stage. In spite of that, we always advise our clients and we help them to do so, to get a fully independent valuation of properties before buying. Because it's what they say, the Caesar's wife has to be honest, but has to show that it's honest. So whatever we propose, we urge the clients to put it in test, and we have done repeatedly. So there is a full independent valuation before they commit, so that they know that they are buying at the market value. And this actually differs from what happens sometimes, because we have found that clients tend to depend in some cases on sellers to represent them. This is like going to court and depending on the lawyer of the opposing party to represent you. It's not the way it's not how things should be done. So it is important, and things can become very complicated. So it is important for clients to ensure that they are getting the full breadth of the advice needed, which includes legal and tax, but also the advice relating to investments and the program itself. As the minister said, the program has been developing. There is quite a bit of background rules which need to apply, and the service provider has to be in full command of what the law provides and what the regulations provide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just wanted to ask you a question when you said about the independent advice that you provide. and comparing to the fact that some of the developers are very active internationally and providing advice to their own products. The difference with Arton in Cyprus is that we deal with most of the developers. We audit and we vet, if you want, the offerings on behalf of the clients independently, and we really provide what is best for them. In a proof of that, can you tell us, because we've been doing this for more than 6 years, some clients have already come to the maturity of their investment where they can sell it. What rate of returns we have been able to provide since the beginning of the investment for some of the clients who have been able to sell as a positive return?
Luckily, we have achieved our not only our primary target. The primary target, when we meet clients, we tell them you need to invest and not lose money. So nobody has lost money. And depending on when they applied, a good part of our clients so far are reaching the second target, which we set, which was that at the end of the 5 years, the final cost of their passport should be at 0 or make a profit on top. So, of course, there are clients who bought property to use themselves. So in that respect, they haven't lost money. Their properties are appreciating, but they're not intending to sell them anyway. But for those who followed our advice and bought the properties that we have managed to negotiate with developers to work out special deals only for our clients, they have made very considerable returns, which exceed 20%. In some cases more. Now, the other thing that we have managed now, because we see that the COVID crisis has potentially shifted the emphasis from achieving capital appreciation to a more secure, in a sense, investment, that of getting a yield. And we have agreed with a number of dependable developers that they would be offering guaranteed yields of up to 5% per annum for 5 years for various projects at various locations. And our role here is to ensure that this yield is a real one. In other words, if somebody is investing in a flat, which under normal conditions would yield, let's say, a rental of 1,000 euros per month, then we make sure that the guaranteed yield is equal approximately to 1,000 euros. And it's not just a gimmick whereby somebody offers a guaranteed rental of 2,000, but then after 5 years pass, the rental will be reduced to the market rate by 50%. And this is where we come in to ensure that this doesn't happen. So overall, our clients have haven't had any rejections, and they made a good return on their property, especially if they followed our advice when it came to investing with the purpose of securing capital appreciation.
Thank you. I have some questions that are coming from the participants, and I would like to ask Aki and Niki as we're going along with the presentation. In terms of this year, 2019, 2020, the volume of transactions in Cyprus have slowed down in terms of real estate overall. Do you believe that the price per square meter in general will be lower in 2020 than it was in 2019? And in other words, would be clients investing now will benefit from better prices and potentially better returns in the future? And would it mean that clients that are coming to maturity in 2020 would lose money?
As I say to clients, the property market is not one. It's never one. The property market is many markets. I mean, if you take Limassol, for example, depending on the distance from the sea, then you have different markets. If there is a market for for on-the-beach properties, which the supply is very limited and the values are very high. You have properties along the seaside road with a clear view to the sea. That's a different market. If you go 100 meters behind that, it's a different market, and so on. The further away you get from the sea, the lower the price. And the market is different in the sense that demand arises from a different market segment. Now, what we have seen in 2019 is that properties which were either on the beach or mostly on the seaside road actually, the values were not coming down, but they were not going up. I mean, if you took those values, the values that we had on the seaside road in 2014, 2015, and compared it to 2019, then you would see that there was a difference of around 15 to 20% rise. Now, those prices have stabilized because there is increasing supply coming into the market. That does not apply for properties on the beach, depending on the nature of the project and its location. So there are no hard and fast rules, but the only hard and fast rule regarding properties on the beach is that supply is very limited, and even if there is some stagnation in values, it will go up in the medium term. Now, when it comes to properties which are of appeal to the local market, for which there has been a lot of demand for rental due to the market dynamics of the previous years, I would not expect prices to come down. They will not come down because they're driven by demand for rental, and this demand for rental is not going to come down because of projects happening in Cyprus. If you take again Limassol, for example, we have the casino resort which is being built now. That would create a demand for housing from about, we estimate about 3,000 to 4,000 families, and the supply simply is not there. So this will keep fueling the demand for rental, which will be added to the demand coming from the local market. People get married, get divorced, they need new housing. So we would not expect any reduction in prices. Of course, with COVID-19, there is stagnation. The market is at the standstill, but it's beginning to change now. That's an extraordinary occurrence, which doesn't have to do with market fundamentals. Having said that, one has to be very careful where he buys, when he buys, if he is buying at the beginning of the project, at the end of the project, and what the criteria are. For example, if the criteria is for the capital appreciation or getting rental income, so there are substantial differences locationally and price-wise between similar projects. I mean, I know of a case where in the same locality, one project sells for about, that's the asking price, for about 5,000 per square meter, and the project next to it is selling for 3,500 starting price. So obviously, even though the market conditions would be positive, buying at 5,000 per square meters wouldn't be such a great idea.
Very good. Thank you. I have a question for Niki in terms of limitations of applications based on nationalities. And also, is financing possible for the investments in Cyprus?
We don't have any nationality can apply, and there is no restrictions on nationalities. However, depending on the nationality, there is a rigorous due diligence process and AML process from the bank. It's a matter of passing the due diligence from the bank, but there is no restriction in any nationality for Cyprus. I didn't get your second question, Armand.
The second question is financing available for some of these investments requirements in Cyprus?
No, the money has to be fresh money from abroad. Of course, let's say that you buy something or you make a factory or whatever you want to do that is over and above 2 million. Over and above, yes, if you want, you can get a finance. It depends if it's a business, if it's a house, but usually if it's a residential property, typically speaking, is not allowed to get a finance for 2 million and 2 million to bring from abroad, because actually you mortgage your property and you don't think you are putting in a risk your property. So actually, typically speaking, no, you cannot do that. If it's for a business, it's a different matter. If you invest in a business or participation in a company, yes, of course, you can put the 2 million and you can get finance for your business because it's actually a real business inside.
Thank you.
Answer your question?
Yes. Okay, any comments that you would like to conclude, both Niki and Akis, before we continue with some of the questions?
What I will say to the people that can hear us now is that we understand that now in some countries there is the lockdown and there is not the flexibility of traveling to other countries. So we are here in case that somebody wants to take advantage of this lockdown period and to proceed in the program. We are here to give all our advice, our independent advice, valuations, and whatever is needed in order to help them and take a decision and proceed with the application of citizenship.
Thank you. Carl, if you can maybe summarize some of the questions that are coming as well from outside.
Yes, thank you very much. Niki, just wanted to take back on something you mentioned because there has been somebody asking about it. You mentioned there is no restriction in terms of applicants' nationalities. Does it also apply for Iranian nationals?
Yes, there is no restriction by the government that Iranians are not allowed to submit any application.
They are not, sorry, I didn't get you. You said they are not allowed.
No, they are allowed. There is no restriction on any nationality. Iranians can apply for Cyprus passport. There is no problem at all.
Of course, all being equal. In other words, they have to undergo a very strict due diligence and anti-money laundering process like all other applicants. And if their money is coming from Iran, there might be a problem with those two. But for example, if somebody is an Iranian living in London and he has a business outside Iran and he's clean, there would be no problem.
But this is for all nationalities, okay? But the program does not have any restrictions on nationalities.
One question regarding investments and source of funds. Can you review what kind of documentation one client have to provide in order to provide the source of funding of his investments?
Yes. of course, we need the passport copy, we need utility, and he needs to show us the source of funds. So actually, he needs to provide us either with financial documents from his company, or if he inherited his wealth, to prove that he inherited the wealth, financial statements, bank reference letters. Depending on each case, for example, one thing that I always say to clients is that, okay, if you are, what shall I say, Arton Capital, for example, or a well-known company that you owe, and the banks can find information on you on the internet, and you can provide also the certificate of shareholder showing that you are the beneficial owner of the company, then they will not ask more, because it's publicly available, all this information. Now, if they cannot find information for a company, they will ask for more and more. And actually it depends on the banks, because they have, they are doing a really good work on AML process, and that's what they have to do. And but okay, if the source of fund is clean, there are ways to prove them and to show them to the bank and pass the due diligence process of the bank.
I have a question, interesting, Niki, coming from a partner in Lebanon, where he's been offered actually to invest in a fund in Lebanon, 1.5 million, in order to invest as a business through an instrument, financial instrument, and then only the 500,000 into a private property directly in Cyprus. Would that work?
The fund has properties in Lebanon?
Mm-hmm.
No.
And the amount is wrong. I mean, the investment should be 2 million plus 500,000 house plus the donation.
Yes.
Okay.
So actually, funds and companies, that's why I said before, even if you participate in a company or in an organization or in a fund, it has to be a real fund, a real company, and it has to have presence in Cyprus, and to be exactly for the funds, it has to be registered in Cyprus as well. So the main concept of the government is that you invest in Cypriots assets, in Cypriot businesses. So first of all, if you are participating in a fund, you have to invest 2 million in the fund, 500,000 residential property, plus the donation. So actually, even the amount that this person is saying is not correct. Now, I don't know the specific. If he wants, he can send us an email and check the specific fund, because I mean, I don't know his structure and what does it include, and we can check it that. But only with the amounts that I hear, I don't feel that it's correct.
If I could add here, we have got some cases of funds in the past which approached us. We are very skeptical and generally against the idea of investing in funds which do not already have assets. It's a different thing to gather, let's say, 20 properties and create a real estate fund, and then invite people to invest in the real estate funds with properties existing on the ground. And it's very different to invite people to invest in a fund which will take the money and then invest. So although our position was positive in cases where the funds had existing properties yielding income, for example, and therefore somebody who would put the money in his money in the fund, he would have a real piece of property being invested in. while in the cases where we had funds which would take the money and then invest, would debt against that.
Okay, we'll answer directly with the individual to get all the details. Another question, which I believe is interesting, is why Cypriots are not treated equally as other Europeans in Switzerland? Would you know that?
That doesn't apply.
In terms of work permits and in terms of, I know that they have certain level of A, B, and C work permits. It's true that depending on the nationalities, you're getting different kind of permits, but would you know if Cypriot citizens will not have the same rights as a German or French citizens in terms of work permits in Switzerland?
In Switzerland, particularly, I don't know, but Cypriot citizens are European citizens, and they are allowed to work and be wherever they want in European Union. We have clients.
Because Switzerland is not European Union.
It's
but
not European Union, but okay.
Because Switzerland is part of Schengen, and Cyprus is not part of Schengen. So
Yes.
would you believe that that could be the difference?
No, because you have been to Switzerland quite a few times. Schengen has to do with entry into the country. And if you hold the Cyprus passport, you just enter like any other EU citizen. Now, when it comes to work permits, I don't know if there, it's the first time I hear of it.
Yeah.
I don't know if there are any special provisions.
Specific.
Pardon?
We'll get more specific details from.
Yes. I would expect, since Switzerland is not part of the European Union, and since Switzerland has this German canton and French canton and Italian canton, perhaps there are preferential terms for people coming from Germany, France, or Italy, perhaps, but I've never heard this. It's the first time I hear this.
Actually, I know Cypriots that they were working and they didn't have problem in Switzerland.
Anyway, yeah, it's we need to check that.
We will check it.
Okay, I think with this, we're covering most of the questions that we received. And as I said, some will follow up personally with more details. If Carl wants to just discuss some of the details of the offering which we announced last week for all participants of this webinar.
Yeah, thank you very much, Armand. Before going to that membership, just would like to ask all the audience also to follow us on the social medias, which you can see on the slides. And as already announced last week by Armand, we are very pleased to inform you that we have, for all of our participants, secured a complimentary membership for a year in the Small World Group, which is the leading travel and lifestyle community. Now you will be having an access level permit, which gives you benefits such as the gold membership in 6th car rental, as well as the discovery program, which is the Hotel Global Alliance part of them. For example, the Kempinski hotel chain. You will be there for 1 year, a platinum member. You will be also receiving from all of us after the webinar a particular email with the specific link and an access code, which you just need to follow, and you will be having the access to that particular membership. Another nice benefit of it, maybe just to add on, we will have the chance to participate in over 1,000 events which are organized around the globe throughout the year. So it is a really beneficial part to have it for you in the future.
Exactly, that would have been my last words, is that it is not to tease you with travel and events that you cannot attend and you cannot do. It is really to give you the tools, the same way as the download application for the Passport Index, an Apple store, will be sent for you to really use the next months with maybe limited mobility to plan, to dream, and nothing better than having as well as Cypriot passports in hand as a tool to do that, with accessing more than 78% of the world map, a country without visa. So as I said, as Arton will give you access not only to the visa-free mobility through the Cypriot citizenship, but as well the tools as Small World members of accessing a lot of exclusive events, hotels, and benefits of airlines, which we believe will come very handy in the next months and years when people return to travel. So again, let's stay positive, and I believe that the best is to come, and we'll all learn and came out of this crisis stronger, more united, and we have learned lessons, which I believe will serve us for good reasons ahead to build a community of global citizens that is more responsible and more cautious how much we're really interrelated and interconnected. So I want to thank you to my dear friends and partners, Niki and Akis, and Harris, who left us. With all of this, I wish you again a nice end of the day, discussing as well next week's event, not to miss the Grenada Citizenship by Investment Program. We'll have our partner, Elizabeth Maku from the Caribbean Office of Antigua covering the event, with the Honorable Peter Davids, the Foreign Minister of Grenada, who will tell us about the country's vision in terms of mobility and expanding their visa-free agreements with many countries ahead. And the head of the unit, Mr. Clouden, who will tell us the latest developments of the program during the COVID latest changes and how the impact of the applications have been in the last month. So again, stay safe, stay home, and look forward to see you again next weekend. Thank you.